people who wax others for a living. What's the worst horror story you have of a client? My nail teacher told me this one. A very large lady would ask for a Brazilian wax, which includes the butt crack. She already had strong body odor, and when my teacher waxed the butt crack, the wax strip was caked in crap. She just about threw up on the client. I was a hairstylist and we really only ever did facial waxing and offered to clients as an upsell. A regular client of mine was traumatized by a brow waxing experience with a stylist that was not myself years prior, and declined. Well, the stylist went to wax her brows and dropped a giant clumper of wax on her lashes. Then proceeded to take a long time to remove the wax, I think like an hour, with only water and no oil residue remover that would have made the wax side off instantly. My eyelashes just retracted into my eyelids reading this. Most stories have to do with bad hygiene, some with clients' attitudes or actions, and some will just be plain old problems getting the hair off. I haven't had a really bad one in a while, or maybe I just am not fazed by it anymore. A favorite of mine was the girl who came in for a Brazilian and was shaking from nervousness before we even started. I'll spare you the details, but it took over an hour to finish the service. Usually takes 15-30 minutes. 45 is the most it should ever take. And at some point she had a full-on anxiety attack. I was being as gentle as I could considering I was ripping hair out of her body, and after every pull she sat up, cried loudly, and then dropped back onto the bed. She got off the bed still half naked and started pacing back and forth, loudly sobbing and hyperventilating. I was trying my best to keep her calm, but honestly, it was all in her head. Getting your hair ripped out always hurts, but her hair should have been an easy service. She let herself panic and the fear got to her. After she left, I sat in the break room, took a deep breath in, and starting sobbing LOL. I was so glad to be done with it. She was sweet otherwise. No smell, easy hair to work with, but god, that was the most stressful service of my life. She actually came back a few more times after that and we finished in 20 minutes. No more incidents. As much as she struggled to get through it, I want everyone to know that no one was telling her she had to. I asked if she wanted to stop and she said she was pushing herself to do new things despite her high anxiety. No significant other pulling the strings, and I certainly didn't force her to go through with it. Some women do it for other people. Many, I would even say most, women do it for themselves. My first Brazilian, I was so nervous. I have anxiety and pushed through it without complaints, but I definitely left sweat marks on the table. After the next time I was fine. I'm like this with all new services of any kind really, and I'm happy she felt comfortable with you to keep going back after. Client story. Went to a waxing studio I had never been to before and got a Brazilian done. The lady did this with bee wax, I think, which you just put on the skin. It dries quickly and you pull it off without a cloth paper. You have to apply it at a certain thickness for it to work. The lady begins and at first, everything is going well. She works her way to the more private areas, but I can tell she works pretty hard. I have strong hair and this was after 2-3 months of growing. When she gets to the labia, the problems begin. She can't seem to rip the hair off. Her solution is to apply more wax on top, but still no budging. More wax is applied and she starts slightly spreading it out too. So I am now covered in warm, thick wax almost everywhere, which feels a little like wearing a small harness. I get a little scared and just hope that she knows what she's doing. She however chooses this moment to inform me that it's possible to rip off skin as well and to kind of scold me for having thick hair. Incredible people skills. So comforting. Luckily, she somehow managed to get it off. Never going back there though. Which feels a little like wearing a small harness. This is a fantastic description. Story my aunt told me. 2 or 3 layers of skin came off with the hair. It was on a guy's genitals and there was a lot of blood and yelling. Stop. My sister was an esthetician and refused to do lash lips and buttholes because of issues with people's hygiene and how gross it could be. Her co-workers gladly did them though. Better tippers. In general, when you're waxing their butthole, and don't hurt them too bad lol. Sometimes people come in and they're super sweaty, and it's hard for the wax to stick to sweaty skin. So, usually, they just pat some baby powder on them and problem solved. One day a younger woman came in, she was super sweaty, so the esthetician decides to haul out the baby powder, dab some on and turn to get the pot of wax to do the job. I should mention the woman getting the wax was on all fours on the table, as they usually are. So, esthetician turns to get the wax. Woman on the table lets out a fart. Just a little slip, but still, baby powder went everywhere, all over the table, all over the esthetician, and was hanging in the air. I asked if the girl was embarrassed, and my sister said that apparently she just played it off like she didn't drop a bomb, but the baby powder evidence told the truth. Plus, it reeked, but the esthetician was a total pro and didn't even faze her. That would have been the end of my waxing career, lol. I literally got waxed today. I'm reading through all of these hoping I'm not the one being talked about. Carmen, if you're reading this, I hope I'm not one of your horror stories. Like I said, Sarah, crapping on the bed while getting waxed is perfectly normal. No need to worry about it. Not a waxer, but one time my sister called me crying after an eyebrow wax because the wax was too hot and they ended up burning her skin and ripping it off. She had to walk around for a couple weeks with red burns around her eyebrows. It was the first time she ever had her eyes waxed before too, so didn't know what to expect. Needless to say, she never got them waxed again after that. She started to get them threaded. When I was in middle school, my mom got a home waxing kit for eyebrows and wanted to test it on me. Mistake number 1 was letting get anywhere near my face with hot wax. Mistake number 2 was standing up while she waxed, because a bit of wax dropped down onto my eyelash and waxed my eye shut. I lost a few eyelashes that day. It was very painful. First time getting waxed, I was maybe 16. And I was about to leave for a few weeks to be a summer camp counselor. I had my legs, armpit, and bikini line done. I wasn't too worried going into the appointment because I knew I had a high pain tolerance. The room I was in was hot to start, and after we started the process I started sweating and the paper lining was sticking to me. It was incredibly painful, but I didn't know any better, so I decided to just tough it out. Afterwards I bled out of every pore she waxed. I got blood on all the clothing I was wearing. My legs looked like tiny minefields. I came out of the back to my mom in the waiting room and I was holding back tears, it hurt so bad. Needless to say, I never went back, and the next few weeks at camp was spent nursing the scabs and sensitive skin. I'm not the esthetician. I was the person who was being waxed. I have a reaction to extreme pain where I laugh. The esthetician said it was better than swearing or yelling at her, but I can only imagine the conversation she had with her co-workers after I left. I have this same problem. Whenever I get anxious about something happening to me, or I'm in pain, I just laugh. The first time I gave blood, the lady kept looking at me like I was crazy, even after I explained myself. Not me, but the stylist who waxes me. She told me she had a girl come in with a tampon. Normally, most of stylists are okay with that, but they will ask you to hold it to one side or the other while they're doing the waxing. This girl let go of the tampon string before the stylist ripped off the wax and the tampon ended up smack against the wall. Due to the impact of the tampon, blood was splattered in multiple places on the wall. Apparently they had to repaint it. She says they both laughed like crazy about it and, to her credit, the girl offered to pay for the wall to be repainted. So I didn't know my skin was insanely sensitive. I went and got the whole kit and capital. Brazilian, the lady even did the inside of my butt cheeks a bit. Well, turns out I'm more sensitive than I thought I was, and the severe itching and enormous rash that followed was catastrophic. I was so itchy and so miserable. I got it done because I had an Indiana Jones trip coming up and my boyfriend said that'd be so hot. It was not hot. I was wrecked. I did not enjoy the dunes. It felt like someone rubbed poison ivy all over my vag and butt and inner thighs. No matter how much aloe vera, cocoa butter and ointments I costed it with, it was a nightmare for like a week before I started seeing results. So the week was spent with horrible tossing and turning sleep, followed by me waking trying to itch it. Going to the bathroom sucked. Hot showers sucked, cold showers sucked, everything about it sucked. One of the 100 creams I used gave me a UT. It was a nightmare inside a nightmare. Oh, not related, but you just taught me it's kit and capital and not kit and capital. Not a waxer, but an eyelash technician. One time I had a client come in with crabs in her eyelashes, which was obviously the worst thing I've ever seen. Frequently people come in for fills and haven't bothered to clean their eyes for 3 weeks thinking it will make the extensions stay on longer, resulting in a nice layer of yellow crusties all along the lash line. A waxer once told me that she had accidentally waxed a girl's tampon straight out of her pee. The string must have got caught in the wax. Neither of them said anything for the next 30 minutes. First comment on Reddit ever BTW. Glad it was this. That sounds like the world's worst magic trick. A regular client of mine that I had been seeing for about half a year came in for her Brazilian wax. Everything is going fine as normal, and then I get to the labia, and as I'm spreading the wax I notice a golf ball sized lump deep under her skin. I remove the wax and investigate a bit. Not any grown hair, nothing surface related. I let her know and she tells me she'll see her doctor ASAP. I never saw her again. Still wonder if it's something serious. On a funnier note, had a woman come in for a Brazilian who clearly hadn't done any maintenance in a long time. I remove the towel that's covering her ladder bits for privacy while we enter and leave the room, and I actually out loud said ho. They had to have been almost 4 inches long. Not my most professional moment. Client laughed though. This was waxing myself, not others, but once I tripped while carrying a hot jar of wax. I was naked as I was about to wax my muff and just got a new sofa. In the split second of tripping for some mystifying reason I decided that instead of letting the wax get on the new sofa I'd put my body under the spillage. I ended up with scalding hot wax stuck to my stomach area. It burned me, and as I have a pretty deep belly button, took a while to cool. I couldn't move in this period as I didn't want to spill the wax more. When it had cooled I had to spend 2 hours slowly detaching the wax from my burned skin and tiny stomach hairs that it had welded to. I was half laughing at my stupidity and half crying at the pain. My mum called during and couldn't stop laughing at me. I got my eyebrows waxed after being off Accutane for like a month. Thought it would be fine. She ripped my skin off but for some reason kept going. I had red skin all along my eyebrows. She didn't even do a good job shaping them. LOL. I had my eyebrows waxed at a very posh hotel spa. She ripped a strip of skin off my eyelid and wouldn't even admit that it had happened. And neither would her boss. It was pretty obvious to everyone else who saw it though. No idea how she managed to do that. I'm a hairstylist, but an esthetician friend of mine said she kept a small container of Vicks VapoRub in her apron pocket and would smear a bit on her upper lip before doing certain people's Brazilians because of the smell. Ah, the good old coroner trick. I wax my own eyebrows mustache at home. Recently, I decided on a whim I wanted to wax off the tail of my eyebrow entirely to make drawing them on easier. I put the wax on, pressed the waxing cloth to it, ripped, and nothing came off. The wax would not stick to the cloth like it usually does. I had to pull the wax off with my fingers, little by little, with each hair of my eyebrow being pulled out individually. Don't be me. Something I learned to do is fill in your brows like you normally would and then pluck the brows that aren't filled in, if that makes my sense. It makes it so much easier and faster to do your brows. Client story. Not as dreadful or gross as the others here, but I tried a new place that promised to do full Hollywoods in 15 minutes. I walked about 10 minutes to the salon on a freezing cold evening. The girl slathers on the hot wax all over my front garden and starts to pick off the wax. Only she can't. She laughs nervously and says it's probably because my skin is ice cold still. After 10 minutes of humming to herself nervously, she calls in the manager, who calls in another beautician. I now have 3 women all working together on my lower region while my legs are akimbo and I'm panicking thinking I'll be the laughing stock of the A&E. Eventually the manager just fricking goes for it without warning and rips it off in one piece. I scream ooh frick off and everyone is suddenly feeling a mix of relief and upset. They are devastated how terribly it went. I'm devastated because the original girl is still upset. I assure them they didn't rip off my labia and henceforth would not be leaving a bad review on Google. We laugh about it afterwards though. They gave me a complimentary treatment which went well and I've been a regular since. I went to beauty school for massage therapy and was talking to an aesthetic student during lunch one day. She said a guy had come in for a back wax looking like a shag carpet. Being that there was so much hair in surface area, it took quite a while. He one-upped every conversation with his Dungeons and Dragons game and even after the service was over, kept talking her to death about it. and didn't tip. He also moved and got a quarter-size drop of wax on his arm and just left it there the whole time. Not his job to get the wax off himself though, lol. I don't do it for a living, but I wax myself during swimsuit season. I had forgotten to put baby powder down and accidentally put too much wax on my bikini line. I decided to pull it off anyway. It took a few fabric strips and I ended up having to pull extremely hard. I broke some capillaries and ended up bruising extremely bad. Hurt like a bee to wear underwear for a week. I was getting a wax one time. I think it was the first time I did it, and I was so nervous and I said something totally stupid as the very nice lady was waxing my butthole and she laughs and goes, "OMG, you're so cute," rips wax strip off. I literally just got waxed for the first time yesterday. What weird timing. The woman who did the service was obviously rushing the job to get to her next client and giving me a sales pitch the whole time about how I had to book that day to come in 4 weeks. Because if I didn't go every 4 weeks it was pointless to come in at all because of how the hair grows and blah blah blah. Also, it was super important that I buy this teeny tiny tube of cream for $20, about the size of a travel lotion, or else I would get infected and disgusting. Please don't give me a freaking high pressure sales pitch when you are touching my lady bits. Oh, and right before she started, with the butt, she told me very harshly that if I flinched or tensed up she would immediately stop the service and she would literally have to go get scissors and cut the wax open. That's what you want to hear during your first time being waxed. Well, she's kind of right about the 4-week thing. I always scheduled my Brazilians after my appointment for 4 weeks to the day, and I bought any recommended products, but I'm prone to razor burn so I was not taking any chances, lol. During school I trained to be a beautician. The salon that I trained at did full body waxing. I was the youngest one there, so the ladies at the salon would give me the clients that they didn't want. One day, an overweight lady came in and wanted a Brazilian wax. She had a foul scent, so they gave the lady to me. I offered her wet wipes and asked if she wanted to go to the bathroom before I start. When I started, the smell worsened. I also had to ask one of the salon ladies to lift her rolls to get to her lady area. Her lady area had crusted crap in her lady area hair. I was still new to waxing, so I ended up throwing up on overweight lady. The overweight lady ended rolling off the table and the firefighters had to be called because no one could lift her up. The salon ladies offered the overweight lady a free service and refused to keep training me. After that I quit my dream of being a beautician and started studying hospitality. I was a hairstylist before becoming an esthetician full-time and I had to do a man's Brazilian. I'm about 90% sure he did pure lewd modeling or something BC of his body and how exact and picky he was. He requested me to wax his shaft and balls, like pull it tight and rip the crap off. Then he asked me to sit there and tweeze any hairs I missed. I don't wax below the neck anymore. I've also had a handful of women come in for Brazilians with toilet paper or other organic matter in their pubes and butt crack hair. My waxing lady told me she had a client who tried to do a Brazilian at home. The client did a small bit then changed her mind. She hopped in a hot bath to wash off the wax and got stuck in the tub. The client then called to flatmates who couldn't pull her out. Her flatmates then called the ambulance who called the fire service who cut part of the bath out, then the ambulance took her to hospital where they removed the bath piece and wax with solvents. Welp, can you imagine? Waxing story. I'm a male. High school girlfriend said I had too much pubic hair. Let her wax me as she wanted to be a professional stylist one day. She didn't do it correctly and ended up, well, yanking. Not an esthetician, but a client. I got a Brazilian wax once and accidentally leaked a tiny bit of semen during the wax. I was horrified and it wasn't even my first time. I wasn't aroused or anything and it just happened. I apologized profusely and she said it was fine and that she'd give me a towel and step out the room to clean up. It was made even worse because I had just minutes before asked her about her horror stories. Now I'm hoping I'm not one of hers. Once had a lady who was rather large, always had awful hygiene and smelled as though she hadn't showered for days. She had those red scabby lines in the folds of her fat, and when she lifted on her skin to stretch for the wax removal, a rotten stench would be released from the crevice. She had eczema and very dry, scaly skin around her bikini line and anus. Sort of reminded me of lizard skin. Guy used to dread the days she was booked in with me. I was doing a Brazilian wax for her BTW. I'm no professional, but I tried an at-home bikini wax by myself and I covered my lady bits in wax, and when I started to rip I decided I couldn't handle the pain. I obviously didn't do it right. Ended up walking around with those on me all day and eventually soaked in a bath to get them off. Don't know why I didn't think about doing this at the time of ripping. LOL. Last week a friend told me this one. She attended this girl who was a bit shady about her last waxing shaving. She asked the girl how long ago it had been or if she had recently been to another spa. According to the story, the girl's parts looked tanned badly, so after some questioning and talking she decided to wax the girl. First strip and the labia skin came off. She went pale and immediately saw what was going on. The client had recently had a laser treatment, a bad one. The girl finally accepted and spilled the truth. At the same time she adamantly asked for a proper waxing because she had an upcoming event. My friend sent her off with a burning sensation and a warning. Not a waxer, but I've worked in a salon before. Just so everyone is aware, if you are stinky, or exceptionally hairy, or have gross grooming habits, the estheticians will talk about you once you leave. One of the clients who came in didn't wipe her bum properly, reportedly, and the girls all referred to her as Stinky Bum. They thought she was a pretty crappy client. Not me, but my niece, who was about 19 at the time, right out of high school, was working at a nail salon waxing place. She usually just had to do regular waxes on women, but this particular day was an elderly man around his 70s and asked for a wax. They go to the back waxing room, and this guy gets butt naked. She was horrified. I guess his balls were hanging between the bottom of his thighs. I have a friend who was a waxer and she had a client come in for a Brazilian. During the service she noticed something hard and bright yellow in the lady's vag. She asked about it because she was afraid of hurting her. The lady nonchalantly said they were Duplo blocks, and that she put things from around the house up there for her husband to randomly find, and he loved it. Friend said it was absolutely bizarre. Not a story but a SAR for those who use face creams with retinol. Be careful if you get your eyebrows waxed. There's a good chance you may lose a layer of skin. Made that mistake and thought it was odd the lady didn't show me my brows afterwards. She was likely worried I'd be horrified and blame her. Poor girl. It was my fault and I accept full responsibility. I have PCOS. This means I can wax mine and anyone's butt crack or anywhere else with ruthless efficiency. My funniest story was when I waxed myself but the cleaning fluid leaked or disappeared. I was 21, in my apartment with a girlfriend and my guy. We couldn't get the extra wax off. This was back in the day. Products sucked, so I am cyclic about herbs, chemicals, and products. For whatever reason I said Tiger's Balm will get it off. Poof, my legs were smooth and tingly and we went to the party smelling like Tiger Balm. Reminds me of a sunburn and Noxema and then party. From a friend. This guy comes in with like 3 of his friends, one of them reeking of weed. The guy wanted to get his chest, a sweater basically, waxed and his friend were there for the lols. So she gets him set up for the waxing and put on the wax. The guy starts crying after the first strip. He taps out after another 5 or 6 strips while yelling and swearing at her through the pain. His friend were just dying from laughter. Anyway, he leaves with a mostly unwaxed chest bleeding through his shirt. Turns out he was a virgin doing it to impress girls or something. Dude was like 40. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.